Good morning, Galaxians and Paper Gold members, and whoever else might be here today. Thanks for coming out. This is the Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips Reseller Talk podcast live, and I'm super excited to once again have Max Common Ground Finds with us today.
I love it, especially after our first conversation a couple months ago. I mean, I felt like we could have went on and on and on, and now we are in part two.
Right. And I have referenced that conversation numerous times in these lives and in other shows where people are asking questions, and I go back to things that you and I talked about that during that chat. So hopefully there are some good questions.
For more, Ryan. They're asking for more.
That's right. Go ahead and let everybody know kind of who you are and where they can find you on the various sites.
All right. Yeah. I'm Max from Common Ground Finds on eBay and Common Ground Finds on Whatnot. And I also run a podcast called Paper Gold Podcast. And I run a Patreon mentor group for booksellers called Paper Gold, an ongoing book hunters conversation. So I feel like I'm all over the place and stretching myself very thin, but I'm out there trying to help people learn how to sell books, source, sell, and make great financial value from that. I've been selling books since the 1990s, and I've been doing it full time for just under about 8 years now. A former high school teacher of 18 years and girls basketball coach, and now I get to work from my kitchen and sell books and talk books.
Isn't that awesome? I don't think people, it's not for everybody, but I don't think people fully appreciate what a life-changing thing that can be to be able to work from home and kind of dictate and set your own goals and your own aspirations and kind of do that at your own pace. It's just been absolutely liberating for me.
It's been emotionally life-changing. It's been spiritually life-changing, physically. I mean, every type of change you want in life. The idea of working from home, you still have to, it's still work. Let's not ignore that. There's still a lot of work that always has to be done. You never catch up. You're always chasing something that has to be done. But the fact that you own your time,
right,
that's the difference maker to me. And my life changed so much when I started selling books on eBay with a little bit more furious than as a hobby, when I was really trying to see what could happen to it. This was 6, 7, 8 years ago. It didn't take me long to start making my teaching salary, which at that time transparently was $52,000 a year. I think inside of 2 years selling eBay books and art, I was matching that. And so it only took me another year or two to exceed that. And then after a while, I was 5Xing that teaching salary. And at 18 years, I could still get a partial pension. Right. So now they're paying me. I mean, I hate to say this because I enjoyed teaching. I loved coaching basketball. It was my life. But as a financial decision and a life decision, the school board of Broward County, Florida, now pays me not to be there. And right. And as sad as that is, it's changed my life just so much. And it's part of the day of what I do is try to help others get to this, because I remember how frustrated I was as a teacher, year 15, year 16. Looking at year 30 and go, how am I going to get to the end of the line here? I don't know if I want to be there. And so that's why I put forth the effort towards books, which is what I knew. And doors opened, some doors closed along the way, but I kept fighting for what I wanted. And I learned what it took to make a full-time living on eBay. And now I just, as you know, I love teaching people about it. I just truly love it.
And that's one of the reasons I started this show and kind of this community. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I miss the coaching and the teaching aspect of being a retail manager. And this kind of scratches that itch without having to go back and like fully do that kind of thing. So
less forms and check marks to fill out. Yes.
And I did leave links in the video description down below to all of Max's things. So if
Thank
you want
you.
to go check those out, those are all there for you. So you don't have to try to remember that. Before we get too stuck in here, let's get into the chat and say some good mornings. Miss Lachey,
Oh, there's Miss
good
Lachey.
morning. Listening from work. I'm always impressed also by the number of people who check in from like an actual full-time job to
Mhm.
this show on Wednesday morning to try to whatever, just to participate in
Yeah.
the community or learn something. The passion that these people exhibit, just even being part-time, is inspirational, to be honest. Lord Jake Ryan, good morning.
We
Speaking
we,
of
we
people
got to get
probably at
Miss
work,
Lachey out of her job. We got to work on Miss Lachey. We got to get her out of her job.
right? Brandon Media Picker, good morning. Den Decor Depot, welcome as always. Ryan Dreyer, be listening while driving, so I won't be chatting, but I appreciate you coming out.
Ryan's the book and air.
Right.
That's the book and
Patrick, good morning to everyone. KG's Unique, Rare, and
air.
Antique Books. Hello. Excited to talk about selling books. Yes. And as I said in the opening chat, if you have questions, comments, things you'd like us to discuss, please leave them in the chat. So it's not just the two of us trying to figure out what to talk about.
Which is never a problem, anyways. People should know you and I talk about books. We go on Whatnot and chat sometimes. So
Yes. Yes. Big Dre, good morning. I'm going to have to blow this up because I can't read all this. It's rough getting old. I think it's Pixel Tail. Good morning. Mel Flip said, good morning. Good to see you. Fern Flips, good morning. T Cat, welcome. Black Cat Flips, thank you for coming by. Midget Gordon Ramsay, good morning. Checking again from my full-time job so I can one day quit said
let's
job.
go.
There we
Let's go,
go.
Major. Let's go.
Miss Lachey says, send me a big check and I'm out of here. Well, we're trying to help you get that check. We're not going to send it directly to you, but so talk to me a little bit about, you kind of walked through a little bit of that journey on eBay, but talk to me about how you've now transitioned that over to Whatnot.
Ooh.
And for anybody who wasn't here the first time, talk about what you see as the future there, because I know you're very bullish on that platform and on live selling generally.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of Whatnot. Like I said earlier with you, and as you know, I've been selling books since the 1990s. Before there was an eBay, before there was an Amazon, I worked in a rare bookstore um, and learned the craft and the profession there. So I've seen a lot of changes. I've heard what people have said throughout the decades now. Back in the 90s, when the World Wide Web is what they used to call it before the
Right.
internet, they would say, who would ever buy a book online? And then eBay and Amazon creeped in, and who would ever buy a book on Amazon? Or,
Right.
and now eBay and Amazon own the platforms, and books media are top 3 to 4, 5 category listings on both of those major platforms. And eBay's global. eBay's a
Right.
global platform, and like you, I sell books internationally every week in my life. And so, even though people said, who's going to buy books back in the 90s online, they're now buying them at a furious, furious pace. And it's just utterly amazing, which brings me to Whatnot.
When
Uh,
people, if I can
yeah,
just interject, people still
yeah,
say, I get that all the time. Nobody buys books
yeah,
anymore. And I'm like,
yeah.
I had somebody at an estate sale, the estate seller, as I was loading up tubs. I've told this story before. I'm loading up a tub with, 50, 75 books. And they're like, oh man, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I sell books online. And they're like, oh, nobody buys books anymore. And I'm like, I'm glad you think that because now I can get these even cheaper.
When I go to the post office daily to drop off bins, and I'm talking about four-wheel carts, usually 2 carts a day, the postal workers they don't believe that I'm selling. They do
Right.
not believe I'm selling books. And so, yeah, people outside of our world don't understand it, and maybe that's what makes it so good for us. But more and more people are reading internationally, globally. More and more people are buying books, even with the rise of technology, and people wanting to read on Kindle or people doing books on tape. There is still a progressively growing population, and even the younger generation now, the kids that are in high school, they want to touch a book. They want to hold the book.
Mm.
And now the advent of the sprayed edges books, which has caught the younger generation on fire for collecting, has just made them want to read more. And those high school kids who are reading those fantasy books, with sprayed edges, sooner or later they're going to get to Dostoevsky. Sooner or later they're going to get to Hemingway, and some of them will become great readers of those classic authors, and some of those will become collectors. So the cycle
Right.
never stops. The cycle never stops.
And you've seen that more broadly just in media in general
Mhm.
with the resurgence of vinyl and now, CDs supposedly also making a comeback
It has.
where there's a desire to own some physical media. And I think people have probably been burned. They downloaded, or what they thought they downloaded, a song, and they found out that what they really got was a license to play the song, and then the rights holder withdrew and all of a sudden they don't have the thing anymore.
Also, I think it's a tactile thing. I think people want to feel what 1925 paper feels like when they flip that page over on a
Right.
book. There's nothing else like it. It's like the smell of a 1970s comic book. There ain't
Sure.
nothing better than that smell, that ink, that soft paper. And so, as much as we want to go with technology, we can't ignore the seven senses we have.
Right. We kind of got off the path there, but going
Yeah.
back to
So
whatnot.
whatnot. Yeah. So I was hearing about whatnot 3, 4 years ago. I was hearing about it. I didn't think anything much of it. I did poke around and look at the book category. I think you had done that too back then,
Mhm.
and I didn't see anything exciting then because it was a new platform. They were growing the audience. They were getting into the social media circles. And then a friend of mine, who you may know, or some of the audience may know, Katie Reeds.
Mhm.
Um, Katie Reeds has sort of gently pushed me onto whatnot. She helped me get on whatnot, and I did my first show, I think about a year and a half ago, my first book show. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not big with technology, or I'm not very good with it. And so my screen was sideways. I wasn't familiar with what I needed to do.
Right.
And yet I sold every book that I had listed. I sold every one. And so there was something there, like that first ka-ching that you got when you were your first eBay ka-ching. That first time I sold books on whatnot, it was like that ka-ching on eBay, where you're like, my life just changed and I don't know. I just got to follow the path.
Sure.
So I went from one book show a week, one Monday book show a week, to now I'm doing book shows 7 days a week. Sometimes I'll take a Saturday off, but I'm doing seven to 10 shows a week, sometimes multiple shows in a day, mainly books. I also have I have a very large consigned signed memorabilia collection, which I do a show on. But like this afternoon, I'm doing a vinyl record show.
Right.
Saturday, I'm selling maps. I'm selling vintage antique maps. So I'm exploring what whatnot can be as well. But I think what I've learned the most is the live selling, the live bidding has taken place of TV. And this is what people like to do. They like to buy, they like to watch the action. And even if they're not buying, I have people who just come to my show just to watch it happen.
Right.
And my audience has grown every month. I mean, just to be transparent, and I always like to be transparent because I never liked people who weren't when I was building my own business. So I'll just be transparent. In the last 90 days on whatnot, I was trying to qualify for the Premier program.
Right. That's a big
And
number.
yeah, and I just did 53,000 on whatnot in the last 90 days. So it's a goal I reached. And I never would have saw that coming a year ago, at
Right.
all. And so that, I'm probably going to make, over $200,000 gross this year on whatnot, not including eBay, not including Amazon, not including the Instagram sales and everything else I do. But that is why this has freed me from my $52,000 a year teaching job.
Right.
That's it in a nutshell.
Now, do you have helpers? Do you have someone that's helping you
Sure.
like prepare listings and all
Yeah,
the rest of
yeah,
that?
yeah. I have a full-time employee who does all of my listing. I'm the one who generally does the pricing and the organizing of getting things ready for shows. I also have an employee who works about 20 hours a week, and all she does is my shipping. As you know, when you do a whatnot show, you could have 20, 30, 100 packages that have to go out after a show. And so I have someone who comes in 20 hours a week and does most of my shipping. And then I have someone who helps me with creating the shows for Whatnot, getting the banners ready,
Right.
making sure I have the right time, just checking and crossing T's and dotting I's, because when you're doing 7 to 10 shows a week, you want to make sure you don't have any problems. I remember having one show at 3 a.m. when I meant p.m. And so for those reasons and like that, you want to have someone have your back. And yeah, I mean, so I have employees. I have employees. I'm contributing to the workforce.
Right.
But it's just it's working from home has just freed me. And I want others who are so frustrated with their jobs. I want others to garner this. And it's not going to happen with this podcast with you and I talking, but I hope it sparks something and gets someone asking the right questions.
Right.
I have the Paper Gold Patreon group, and we have just about 130 members globally. I mean, we have members learning about what we talk about in Australia, Israel, England. I mean, Israel's a war-torn country right now, and
Right.
we have someone in our Paper Gold group who wants to sell books on eBay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely a worldwide phenomenon.
Right.
People want that freedom, and whether they end up ultimately choosing books or fashion or whatever, just the reselling in general allows people to
Yeah.
have that opportunity.
And
Speaking of
yeah.
questions, go ahead.
Well, let me just jump. I want to finish what we had talked about. So I think this is the future of reselling. I was on Whatnot over the weekend, and there was a lady from Italy selling groceries in Italy on Whatnot.
Right.
She wasn't shipping worldwide, but she had an Italian flag on her banner. And when you went into her show, she's speaking Italian and selling groceries in Italy. And then there's now sellers in Canada and sellers in England. So I'm sort of just waiting for that convergence of the global shipping program that eBay does for us to
Right.
happen on Whatnot. Because if we have an international live bidding audience,
That's a game changer.
it's a mic drop. It's everyone's going to have to hire a shipper.
Right. Right. Well, and clearly the other platforms agree with your take that live selling is the future, because Poshmark keeps expanding their live selling. eBay continues to talk about it, though I don't really see I
Yeah,
don't really see a bunch of people doing it
aren't they
there.
strange? They're doing their beta program for 2 years now,
Right.
and they're doing just cards and Nikes and comics, I guess, but they're not expanding it to other categories.
Yeah.
And I keep looking at Whatnot, going, Whatnot's making all the right moves, and how much business are they taking away from eBay on a monthly basis? I wonder.
Oh,
Which might
yeah.
explain a lot more. This could be part 3 of a conversation. I know a lot of people are upset with eBay, have been for about a year, declining sales, people leaving the platform, some very big YouTubers leaving the platform, as you know.
Right.
I just wish eBay would come out and not give us a quarterly newsletter, but talk to us and let us know what's going on.
Right. I wonder if they know.
Oh, they have. There's no way they may be getting more money in promotional listings from sellers, but when you have an arsenal of people leaving the platform,
Right. Yeah. I was just going to say
yeah,
there's a cap on how productive that can be when you're bleeding not only sellers but buyers, because buyers are also leaving.
yeah,
They're one chasing the other. I don't know which one's causing the other, but all these people go to Poshmark or Whatnot or wherever, and buyers want to find that merchandise. They're naturally going to follow where those people go, and those Whatnot in particular is just doing incredibly well.
and I keep saying, why are they making all the right moves and everybody else isn't following their lead, which is the part I don't understand.
Right.
I mean, I remember a week ago you were doing a show about Etsy losing $1 million or so.
Right.
I mean, is Whatnot now the leader? Do we have to change the direction of the conversation? I wonder.
Yeah. Yeah. Sissy Moore, good morning. Den Decor Depot, love the fact everyone says don't sell media, keep preaching, and we'll keep cashing checks. Absolutely. Mel Flips, it says, what is sprayed edges?
I wish I had one I could show. I don't have anything behind me. It's what you and I would know as foredge back in the day, antique books, but it's the books with the with the sprayed edges on the where the pages would be on the edge of the book, and sometimes it's a design. Um, if it's a fantasy book, it'll be sort of a fantastical design. It's more of an art piece on the front side of the edge of the paper.
Right. A lot of times on the older like antique books, it would be like a marbled
Yeah.
pattern or whatever
Mhm.
along that page
Oh
edge.
yeah, and then there was foredge, which if you squish those pages together, the book together, actually a painting would show itself.
There you go. Midget Gordon Ramsay. I'm curious about the sprayed edges too. Never
I
heard of
wish
it.
I had one last week, but I sold it. I wish I had one to show you.
Den Decor
It's
Depot
so great.
says, Max, what is your favorite genre of books to sell? Do you find your enthusiasm in a genre shows better whatnot
Wow,
sales?
that's a great question, Dan. I love selling genealogy. I think it's the highest dollar book you can get when you get good genealogy books. But my favorite of all time, I love, and a lot of people know this. I love art books. I love big art monographs. I love skinny little exhibition catalogs. I love art books of artists you never heard of. I love flipping through them. I
Right.
just have something towards that I like that excites me about selling them. I sell art books every day on eBay. I do some on Whatnot as well. Um, does my enthusiasm in a genre show in better Whatnot sales? I mean, you can tell him, Ryan. I'm an excitable host. I did a show this past Sunday where I cleaned out a North Carolina bookshop, and so I was just putting the books on my carousel right over here, and I wasn't doing any research on anything. We were just putting them up three, four, five books at a time and taking and starting at $1. And it's just exciting. It's exciting to sell books. We're doing part two of that show this Sunday. So if anybody wants to come on in Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern, we're doing the rest of the bookshop. I just love selling books. I'm a bookseller. That's who I am, and my excitement is every day in this business, even with some of the hurdles we have to go through. But I just love selling books. I love the community, and again, I love teaching it. I love helping people who have an interest take that interest and put that into execution. Make a business card, try to get backroom access, learn how to get backroom access at a thrift store.
What kind of tip would you give if you could give just one
Mhm,
outside of your Patreon group, of course,
mhm,
to
mhm.
the audience today? What's a good ticket to sourcing kind of out of the norm?
Sourcing out of the norm. Okay, so I mean, number one, you have to have a business card. The business cards will help you. If you can't buy a 500 business cards for $25, and this is not a business for you. Those business cards are soldiers for you. And once you start handing them out, those soldiers are working to get you business. So I work with a lot of estate sale companies. I work with a lot of clean out companies. Now I live in South Florida, so there's a lot of assisted living facilities and retirement communities here. And so people move from their homes to these ALFs. And not everybody has an estate sale company. Some people will hire a clean out company, which will downsize their home and get them into the ALF that they're moving into. And everything from that home isn't sold on eBay or Whatnot or Amazon or Pango or any other platform, Etsy. Um, they take those items from the house that are not going with them to the ALF, and they're going to be donated to Goodwill, Salvation Army, any number one of things. But when you start working with them, they call me now when there's books. So the best tip I can give you is get to the books before anybody else gets to them. So if you can get to the books while they're still on the shelf of someone who's moving or someone who's passed away, and you're the only person to see these books, you're getting the first crack at those $50 books, those $100 books, those $1,000 books. Um, Once they start going through the system of getting to the donation center, and other people are now walking to the back of the thrift store and looking at books, you now have competition. I like to get books without having competition. And while I still love the Goodwill bins, I still love scraping through those bins and digging and finding things. There's nothing better than being the first person to look at someone's collection of books, sadly and tragically, who's passed away.
Yeah, and I've talked about that networking
Yeah.
piece. How, I'm in the same boat. I've got estate sellers who call me before they even start to prepare
Yeah.
for a sale and say, "We've got a house full of books. Do you want to come
Yeah.
make us
We
an
got
offer?"
books.
Yeah, and they just know
Yeah.
now, after 4 years of
Right.
me attending their sales and leaving a card and leaving a card and leaving a card.
Mhm. And
And
and you know what? The truth is, and you know this, Ryan, they don't want the headache of books. They want to
no,
sell the furniture. They want to sell the stuff that they know about. And what my people will say to me, which is so funny to me, how soon can you get here?
yes.
They want rid of the books.
Right. Yeah,
And
because they
so,
don't want to have, I talk about that as a service that we provide
yeah,
to them, hauling all that stuff away, packing it up, doing
right.
all of that work so that
Mhm.
they can focus on the things that they want to focus on. It's a win for everybody.
Yeah,
So,
and just to tell a quick story, I did a house clean out in this very scenario last week or 10 days ago, and I got about 8 boxes of books. Now, 20 of those books went on eBay, very good eBay higher dollar books, but I sold over 100 of them already on Whatnot, and then things I did not want to sell went back to a Goodwill. Um, and so, in the end, after that pickup of 10 days ago, there's some books listed on eBay, but there's no death pile. Whatnot has
right.
allowed me to not have a death pile, make cash, get it in the bank, and do what I want with it.
Are there any genres of book that you found that don't do well on Whatnot, or that you've not had particularly strong success
Yeah.
with?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, while I love science fiction and I love Bradbury and Asimov and Pohl and all those great sci-fi writers, it for me, Whatnot and science fiction paperbacks is a very saturated market. I think at any day you can probably find 10 sellers at least on Whatnot doing that. So I stay out of that marketplace. Now, if I went to a flea market and I saw 3 boxes of those beautiful yellow Dawes science
Right.
fictions, I would probably do a Whatnot show just with those, just because I know that the Dawes are highly collectible. But I don't, I'm like I said, I'm selling maps on Saturday. I did some ephemera last Saturday. I'm still learning and pushing the parameters of what I can do on Whatnot. And so I'm still learning about what the possibilities are. But like I said earlier, $53,000 in 90 days is life changing.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Pixel Tail, people want to preserve history in books. Digital media is far less tangible and secure. We just spoke to that a little bit ago. Definitely the case. Then the Core Depot says, yeah, the 70s comic books and 80s Topps baseball cards. Yeah, there is, picking up an old book and getting that first, hint of the scent
Mhm.
of it is just, there's just something about that. I talked about it when I owned a record store.
Mhm.
That is
Oh yeah.
an experience that for not quite a decade was kind of lost because everybody was online. And now you are finding people that appreciate being able to go back in, and just the act of flipping through the bins looking for that gem is,
Yeah.
it's an experience, and it's a social environment that you just
Mhm.
can't get from Spotify's algorithm.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head though. Just it's a social thing. Even on Whatnot,
Yes.
the idea of putting a record in front of people and then pulling it out of the sleeve and showing it off, people are excited about that. They're excited about it. And like I said, I have a show today at 3 o'clock on vinyl records, and it's just fun to have a whole group of new people who like vinyl records that I can hang out with for an hour.
Right. And
It's social for us too.
yes. Oh, no, absolutely. I'm constantly trying to encourage people on Whatnot to have a conversation, participate in the
Mhm,
chat. Let's,
mhm.
I'm not just here trying to hawk my wares. That's why I call mine sales and shows, because I'm excited about the books. I'm excited about meeting with people in the community. So it's not,
And you run
I
a
mean, I'm
great
trying to
show.
make money, but it's not.
You have the tech, you have all the bells and whistles. I mean, I want you to come down to Florida and let's do that over here.
Gordon Ramsay says physical media also can't be quietly deleted or changed while you're not looking. Absolutely true. Black Cat Flips, going back to your Monday show about eBay buying Etsy, I think eBay and Whatnot should merge. They would complement each other very well. I would be curious whether Whatnot would even be open to being purchased. I don't know what the ownership situation is there. If that number would have to be enormous given the sales that they're doing now.
I think that Whatnot has the leverage in that conversation, despite what
Yeah.
people may think.
Right. Yeah. No, they're, at least for the time being, they're the ones showing the growth,
Mhm.
which is what the investor community certainly is looking for. But that would be a very interesting
But I
mix,
can
and I
tell you
can
this.
understand
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
from eBay's standpoint with their desire to get into live, where that would look like a very attractive acquisition for them because all the technology is there, everything you would want. They could leave it as a standalone and incorporate all that tech into their own. I mean, it would be a huge win, but I don't think they have the appetite to spend the money.
No, and people. I was selling books in the '90s, so people are talking about Whatnot the same way people used to talk about eBay and Amazon, where you just hear the conversation get louder and louder every month, louder and louder, until it became a staple of our life. And now,
Right.
as I walk my dog in the morning, I pass by 4 Amazon trucks dropping things off to people's homes. I mean, technology is always going to change man's destination. And if people can't see that Whatnot is part of that next level of change, that next evolution, then you're blind, because people want to be at home. People want things delivered to their door, whether it's their eggs or it's a 1925 Hemingway book. They just want things delivered to their door.
Right. Well, and the ability to find that random 1925 book, if you're in a community, even a fairly substantial community, you how many bookstores would you have to walk into and not be able to find that book? And you can go online and you can do a search and you can find multiple options to purchase a particular item, which is just something that was unheard of 40 years ago.
Well, this is where I worked in the 1990s. This 3-story bookshop. That's what it looked like. And um, there was a floor above that you cannot see. But in order to sell a book back then, you had to wait for someone to be in your city,
Right.
to walk into that shop and ask for that book. And if you had rare books, you would put them in an old ABA catalog, which was tinier than newspaper print, flip through the pages and see if you can find it. Technology has now changed the entire digestive system of buying and selling books. And it's just utterly amazing to me to have worked there in the 90s for a decade and now be in the first quarter century of the 2000s and see how the book market has changed. And not only do I look at what it's changed now, where's it going to be in 5 years?
Right. And Whatnot, as you've said, is the kind of the perfect combination of being able to find all those random books without having to be in that particular city,
Right.
but still giving people the opportunity for that social interaction environment. Oh, I see you're interested in that book. Have you ever read this one? Or, whatever, those conversations that can't happen
Right.
if you're just searching on Amazon.
And book lovers communicating and networking with other book lovers,
Right.
which, so the social interaction is there. If you want to hang out with people who like Disney pins, I'm sure there's a Whatnot show for Disney pins, and you can talk to your people there. And so they've made little communities.
Right. And that to me is the big driver
Mhm.
of that platform, is the individual sellers being able to build their own followers and community, which is something that, I've got almost half the followers on Whatnot that I currently have on eBay, and I've been on eBay since 2000.
Yeah, it makes you think, doesn't it, Ryan? It really makes you think about. It makes you think about how much longer can eBay go without changing their current mode of selling.
Right.
And I'm sure they have these conversations. They just don't share them with us.
Yeah. Media Picker says, I love selling physical media, mainly CDs. Something about having a physical copy that you can actually own. I guess that's why I have over 5,000 CDs in my personal collection. I was right there with you at one point. I was coming up on probably 8 or 10,000 when I had my store, because you get so much stuff that just
Mhm,
gets sent to you from the record companies, the one-off promo or whatever. And
mhm.
I had kept all that stuff for years, but I've since unfortunately gone to the dark side on that. I'm on Spotify and I don't have any.
Do you wish that you had held on to it to sell it on Whatnot?
Well, that is actually how I got started with
Okay,
my resurgence on eBay. So I'd been off eBay and back in, traditional retail and whatever. And when I decided to start dabbling in this, I had several thousand CDs left over from the closure of my store. And I was like, well, this stuff's just sitting in my basement in boxes. This is a great place for me to start.
mhm,
And I just started listing those things on eBay, and they started selling, kind of like your experience,
right.
immediately. I mean, it was not 4 hours. And I had some stuff that was selling, a couple that brought pretty good money, and I'm like, there's something to this reselling thing. And that's when I kind of started looking more seriously into it and looking at how I could source, and then learning which categories I wanted to really be in and focus on. But yeah, no, that was the inventory that I used to kind of jumpstart that foray into reselling.
And did you know immediately it was a life changer? Did you feel it
Oh yeah.
emotionally? Yeah.
Yeah, no, because I was looking for something else. I was
Mhm,
in car sales at the time, and it was a mid-August, bright sunny day, and of course, there's nobody on the lot, and I'm sitting in my little cubicle looking out the window, and I'm like, I could be out taking a walk, riding my bike, taking the kids to the park, doing whatever, and I'm stuck in here. And like you, I'm like,
mhm.
I don't think I've got 20 more years of this in me. So I started looking for something, and I stumbled on some YouTube videos about reselling, and threw up those first listings in mid-August of
Mm,
2019. And
okay.
on September 1st, I gave my notice at the car dealership, and I said, I'm going to go do this thing and see if I can make a go of it.
Boy, I have great memories of the early YouTube reselling videos. People, I mean, there was only 3 or 4 really people doing it back then, and it's just amazing how much it's grown now.
Yeah,
I remember being a big fan, being a big fan of like Bonafide Hustler and watching him sell whatever he could find and making these great videos. And it's just been a great treat to watch the growth on YouTube as well of
sure.
resellers.
Yep. T-Cat says, Max, how many books did you have to sell for 200,000?
Oh, that's a great question. That would be at the end of this year. So
Right.
it's 50,000 at the end of the first quarter. So, I'd have to look at that number, and I know T Cat, she's in paper gold. That's Troy. But I think it's not just books; it's records as well. It was the memorabilia,
Sure.
signed memorabilia as well. But I was probably selling 500 items plus um, every week. So every week, 2,000 a month, 6,000 at the
Right.
end of 3 months, but it could be closer to 8,000. If I look at my sold inventory on Whatnot, it says, I think 11.2 thousand items sold, but I was selling also in the middle of last year. So I have to subtract some. So I probably sold 10,000 last year on Whatnot.
Yeah.
So
So
that's a lot of items. That's a lot of items.
yeah, it's definitely, and I talk about it all the time. Media is very much a numbers game, because you don't know what any one particular individual might be looking for.
Right.
So throwing as much stuff out there as you can,
Mhm.
it attracts more buyers and sells more stuff. So yeah,
And if you look at the people who are buying storage lockers, their business has changed. Now they buy a storage locker, they bring it back to their warehouse, they have a Whatnot sale. There's no more death pile. It's
right.
gone. And then they go to the next storage locker. And so the the buyers are hungry for what we're doing.
Right. Yeah, they
They're
are definitely there, and this gives you an opportunity to turn things with some quickness, so you don't have cash tied up
Mhm.
necessarily sitting in a warehouse. Now, I'm a big believer. I don't mind long tail.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm willing to wait for some things, but the immediacy of being able to move through that inventory is
Right.
phenomenal.
Yeah. Live in both worlds. I mean, I 2 days ago I sold a book that I had listed since 2020.
Right.
So I don't mind long tail books either, but it's better to live in both worlds. It's better to live in
Yeah.
long tail world, and it's also great to live in the immediacy world. And when you live in both worlds, that's when your bank account really changes your life.
Right. Is there
I don't know any other way to say it to people. I mean, I'm just trying to be as transparent as I can about this.
right?
It's life changing.
Is there a particular criteria that you use? You've got a box that you've got from an
Mhm.
estate sale, and you're
Sure.
going through it. This one's going on eBay. This one's going to whatnot. How do you differentiate how you want to handle those items?
Ooh, that's a 4 hour long conversation. You know,
As a
yeah.
bookseller, let's do the Reader's Digest
Well,
condensed version.
I'm now, 2 years ago, my lowest price book, I would have sold books on eBay for $12. And now with the shipping increase, my lowest dollar book I'm going to list currently is now $18. Um, but if there's a book that sold 3 years ago for $30, and that's the only copy that sold, but it was a $30 sale, I'm going to put that on Whatnot. I'm not going to wait a year to sell that book anymore. So my lower price is now starting to rise a little bit more and more. But at the same time, I want to give my Whatnot audience great books. I don't want to sell them my junk. I don't want to sell them trash. I want them to get great quality books and be excited about what they're getting. So I'm more apt, and this goes back to kindergarten, I'm more apt to share the good books with everybody else.
Right. Den Decor Depot says, but we get seller news now from eBay. Yes, that was an announcement, I think, on Monday. Monthly seller news.
Yeah.
And the first episode of that had virtually no news in it, but that's another topic. Brian Henry, welcome. Checking in to say good morning before heading out to an auction pickup. Catch the replay. Appreciate that. Don't forget to hit the thumbs
Yeah.
up, says Miss Lachey. Yes, I appreciate that because I'm terrible at soliciting those. So if you are here and getting something out of this, please do me a favor
Oh,
and
your
hit that
audience
thumbs
is
up.
growing. I'm following you, Ryan. Your audience keeps growing. You're doing great.
Kaylee Debs, good morning. Den Decor Depot says, what's the fastest way to build an audience on Whatnot? I've not
Wow.
focused on a social media following, so where do you
Yeah.
start?
Ooh, I love these questions Den Decor Depot is giving. Um, you do not have to have a social media influence. I do. I do. I don't have one. I mean, if I make a post, if it gets 30 likes, that's big for me. Um, but I don't think that contributes to what I do on Whatnot. I do think that once I get in Whatnot audience, they will check out they'll go reverse. They'll go check out my Instagram and everything else I do. But there are a lot of hacks. There are a lot of hacks to gain an audience on Whatnot. I'll divulge one right now for everybody. I'll give them a little behind the scenes paper gold secret. Um, One thing that you can do is let's say you're selling books. Let's say I'm selling books. We'll just make it real easy. Let's say I'm selling books, and I want to try to get some new audience members. I may go to a bookseller like Galaxy CD. I may go to his profile. I will go to his profile. I will click on his review setting, and he may have, I don't know, Ryan, do you have hundreds or thousands of reviews? How many do you have right now?
Just under 100.
Okay, so he has 100 people who have actually bought from him right now. I will click on each one of those people, of those 100, follow them, and I will send them a message about my upcoming show. So I'm literally going into another bookseller's profile, going to their reviews, and finding the people who actually bought books from them, and I will try to grow my audience that way.
Yeah. Do you have any way to measure how successful that has been?
$53,000 in 90 days.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah, I
as
mean,
part
yeah,
of
you
that,
have,
but do you get like
yeah,
if you go and you follow someone and you send them an invite to your next show,
right.
do you notice that you're getting follows back
Yeah,
with
I
any
mean,
kind of
you're always
immediacy
going to,
or
yes, you're always going to get them. But I can't give you for every 10 you get one. Every person is a lottery ticket.
right?
When you scratch it off and you don't know if you don't know if you want until you scratch it off. So because you don't know if you want until you scratch it off, the scratch off for me is doing that, going into other people's shows, other booksellers, and seeing, because the audience, there are people who come into my book shows on Sunday and Monday I've never seen before.
Yeah,
So we think that Whatnot's this closed little community, but no, there are people buying from Ryan who don't know about Max. There's people buying from Max that don't know about Ryan. There are people buying from both of us who may not know about another seller. And so the audience is just growing and growing and growing by the day. But as Den Decor Depot asks, there are ways to make that happen quicker and expedite the process. And in my Paper Gold Patreon group, we have whole episodes about this. We have about 20 people who do Whatnot in the Paper Gold group, and they do it religiously.
yeah. Dendicor asks, is there a sweet spot on time for shows, the old school eBay auctions ending on a Sunday night at 9 to 10 Eastern, that kind of thing? I can't, my limited experience is that there's not. I used to do all my shows at 7 p.m., whatever it was, Tuesdays and Fridays. Now I've switched them to Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 a.m., and my audience size is about the same. So it's different people just because of the timing.
And
But
I'm doing 1 to 4 p.m. somewhere on that line in Eastern Standard Time. So I don't think there's a sweet spot. I think growing an audience, that's where you want to make your sweet spot, is grow that audience and get people. I get plenty of people who come to my 1 o'clock shows and they tell me they're at work and they're
right,
doing this without their boss knowing. People will buy what they want. I mean, there's no other way to explain it that easy. People will buy what they want, and if they want something, they're going to be in your show. I never believed in the eBay auction on Sunday night ended, because that's what we've all been saying for 20 years. So that's what everybody does. So I want to go on a day that nobody else is ending. I want
right.
there to be less competition. So I'm going to zag while everybody else zigs. So go against the grain sometimes, and you're going to find surprising results.
Yeah. That's the type of info he's looking for. He says, thank you. It's a free leads list. Absolutely. For the whatever it is, 30 odd people that are here checking this out. Do either of you know of anyone having success with static listings on Whatnot? That's a question that I've gotten quite often, and I've never done anything with it.
I mean, I know some booksellers who have lots of static listings. Of course, it's not going to be as excitable and it's immediate as doing the live bidding and auction. But I could foresee a time, unfortunately, where Whatnot does grow more static listings and becomes more like eBay with the static listing, and also has the beautiful Whatnot bidding platform. I mean, Whatnot has the power to take the whole game over, I think, if they wanted to.
Right. As they attract more buyers and sellers, you would think, because not every seller wants to do this kind
No,
of.
we're just waiting for the international shipping component that eBay has made. Once Whatnot garners that tool, watch out.
Yeah.
Watch out. You're going to sell books worldwide every day of your life.
Right. Was there a particular moment where you went from 1 or 2 shows a week to multiple shows a week? What was kind of was it success in the individual limited shows that drew you to doing
Right.
more, or how did you kind of make that transition?
I love that question. And so I think part of the answer is geography. I live in South Florida. I have Miami to the south of me and Boca Raton to the north of me. These are 2 great book towns. These are towns where people retire to. And so they bring their book collections and they retire down here to South Florida. And the mere fact that thrift stores are everywhere, like churches are on every block here, we have thrift stores everywhere because of the weather. We have flea markets and garage sales almost every day somewhere here. Everything is on the ready. And so what happened with me is I was looking around, and I kept and handing out business cards, and I kept getting calls and saying, "Hey, you know, um, you want to buy my collection of books?" I would go to the flea market, buy books from someone, but give them my card and say, "Call me next time, and you don't even
Right.
have to bring them here. I'll meet you." And so my phone would just ring, ring, ring every day with new potential places to buy books. And I said, "Well, we don't have to list all of these on eBay. Let's give this to the whatnot clientele." And that's what happened. And then I just, by sheer grace and good luck, I got a call one day about this 1 million item signed memorabilia collection. And that helped me go from 2 book shows a week to 4 or 5 shows a week, just selling signed memorabilia.
Right.
And once I was doing 5 shows a week, what's another 2 days? Just add 2
Right.
more days, and now let's sell some records. Look, I mean, you know, I want to make money like everybody else wants to make money. I'm not afraid to work. I'm in a good place to get items. I know that's not the same for everybody. I mean, I
Right.
have paper golders who live in tougher areas to get items. But when opportunity presents itself, that's where I am in life. You know, I at 54, that's my age now. I feel like I'm in my 30s, and when I was in my late 40s teaching, I felt like I was in my 60s.
Yeah.
And it, it's just been a blessing. It's been a grateful blessing.
Yeah.
Not just whatnot, eBay too, and Amazon. I mean, all the platforms I play on have been a blessing. It's not the platform; it's the ability to sell from home, which has been the blessing.
Right. Right. And that access to
Yes.
substantial amounts of good inventory is also because I talk to people all the time that are in the same boat. They're in a small community, and just the access of really good sellable inventory is a lot more
Right.
limited. So,
But that doesn't mean they can't do great things, because
oh no,
part of my business, and I think we've talked about it before, is I have a very large consignment business, and I have people shipping books to me from all over the country. They're shipping boxes, or I have 2 pallets of books coming in from Connecticut next week, with a library that closed down. So if you are in a tough geographic region, all you have to do is switch gears and become a consigner for people and sort of advertise yourself. And people will call me and say, "Max, can you spend a half hour with me live on my phone and go to an estate sale? And any book we find, I'll send to you to sell for me." And so I find myself, a couple times a week going to different states, literally
right,
geographically, going to different estate sales and holding and watching my phone as they scan the shelves, and I'm telling them what books to pick. And
right,
then they're in a box in my house in a week. So again, the books are coming right to me just because I switched gears on what I wanted to do.
right. How do you handle consignment in terms of like a percentage of a split? What's
50/50 after
fif-
eBay fees. Yeah,
okay,
because we put most. I do some on Whatnot. There may be a consigner who says, "Hey, I just want money. Make a Whatnot show for me," and I'll do a whole Whatnot show with their books.
right,
But 50/50 after eBay fees.
yep,
And business hasn't stopped with those numbers. Just hasn't stopped. It just continues to grow.
right. Miss Lachey says eBay auctions. Tell us your evolution using auctions.
Yeah. Whew. You have to have one of my friends on for that answer. I have a friend, you know who it is, Ryan, Kent, KG's Rare and
Yeah,
Antique Books. He is a big proponent of eBay auctions. He does 30 auctions a day, 6 days a week. And so he does nothing but that. I'm not a big fan of eBay auctions. I'd rather much be on Whatnot. You don't have to wait 7 days or 10 days or 30 days if that's the time frame you're choosing. I like putting my items up a week ahead of time, sometimes 2 days ahead of time, showing off what I can and selling them as quickly. Miss Lachey has to understand I move a lot of books every day. I move a lot of items every
Right.
day. And so I have fallen in love with the idea of selling a lot of things every day. Um, I'm not being so particular about things. We just don't.
Cha-ching.
Yeah, we just an art book from David Hockney, the artist.
How would you recommend someone who is only doing this part-time?
Mhm.
What would be their best strategy to make Whatnot successful for them? Not necessarily any one individual show, but
Right. To grow the
to
audience.
utilize the platform to be able to grow an audience
Yeah.
with limited time and limited resources.
Well, we're doing that. We're doing that all over the place on the Paper Gold group. We talk about this, daily. You have to do what I just explained. You have to build the following. And step number 2 of this is don't plan a show for 2 days from now. Plan a
Right.
show for 7 to 10 days from now, and give yourself that week and a half to start sharing your show. And when I mean share your show, I mean, because you and I sell books, here's another hack. I'm giving away all the hacks right now. So when you share a show on your phone on the Whatnot app, you can click on the icon share and type the letter B into the search bar. But for you and I, we can type the word book, BOOK. And everybody with book in their name is now going to show up. And you share your show 5 at a time. They only allow you 5 with those people. So you can do book, then you can do books, then you can do the book, then you can do the word literature,
Sure.
antiquarian. I mean, I got a whole list. It's another
It
hour
would be
show. I got
it'd
a
be
whole
almost
list.
limitless.
Yeah, yeah. And so you just keep going and going and going, and you just continue to share your show. Now, as funny as Miss Lachey is going to love this answer, there's going to come a time, maybe in another month, where I hire someone just to share my shows for me because
Yeah.
I'm doing them 7 to 10 days a week,
Right.
and
I
they're
was
just
I was
going to
just
be in
going to
charge.
ask
Yeah,
if
yeah,
that was something that
yeah,
you did or was in
yeah.
the works, because that's and people who sell on Poshmark, that is one of their primary complaints as well. The driving force behind
Right.
performance on Poshmark is the constant sharing of your
Mhm.
closet, and if you're doing live over there, sharing and share. That's why so many of those sellers have VAs
Right.
to just do kind of
Yes.
that piece of
Yeah.
it. So,
But I would ask you this, Ryan, and tell me if I'm being truthful here. For every show you've done on Whatnot, you're probably getting at least one new buyer every show, right?
oh yeah, no, absolutely. And seeing
Yeah.
tons of new followers, even on a show. I did a show last week where I had 20 kind of not the greatest titles. I
Mhm.
didn't sell a single thing, but I got 8 new followers from the show.
Yeah.
So that's for me, even though that individual show was not a financial success,
Mhm.
it was a success in terms of building the community
Right.
for down the road. So all of these things start to accumulate and into hopefully future
So,
success.
is it safe for me to say this to you? Would you say this is truth or lie? Whatnot is exploding.
Oh, absolutely. You can see it even if you don't go and attend the shows and you just look at their financials. I mean,
Then give me the end of this sentence. In the same comparison of Whatnot, how would you describe eBay currently?
oh, it's stagnant at best. I mean, we've talked about that on, my shows over the past several years. Their gross merchandise volume has not grown. They don't even announce anymore
Yeah.
their seller figures because I know that number is declining.
And this is not the first time we've talked about this. You talked about it individually or me in another program, but we're trying to talk to eBay. We're trying to ask them what's going on. We're trying to have conversation, and they are a brick wall, unfortunately.
Right. Well, and we talked offline before we went live about and I've talked about it on the show repeatedly, their reliance on squeezing ever more money from their existing level of business
Yeah.
through promoted listings, ads, so on and so forth, raising fees, relying on the postal increases to give them a little bump because they get a little bit more every time the postal rates go up. And they haven't really done anything, in my opinion, as a guy sitting in my basement, to grow either their user, their
Right.
seller, or their buyer base. And that to me is problematic.
But you're not the only one who feels this way. There's a giant community that feels this way, and a lot of people on YouTube who talk about this. And I just don't understand the silence from, I don't understand the silence from eBay when they obviously know there's something that we need to know about, and communicate about. We're you know, what I'm blaming, I'm not blaming eBay for whatever's going on. I'm blaming them for their silence.
Right. But another issue we've discussed on more than one occasion, the
We have
lack
to do a
of
show.
communication. Or
Yeah, we got to do a show called the pre-show and the post-show of Match and Ryan.
Den Decor Depot asks, what does your show prep look like, or
I
do you
love
just wing
that.
it?
Man, Dan Decord's asking the great questions. No, I don't wing it. If I do a book show, I'm only going to probably show what I call 10 or 20 visibles. That means I'm going to show you 10 or 20 items, but there may be 100 items in the show. So I'm going to try to get you to look at these 10 or 20 visibles. And I always get pre-bids on most things before the show starts. And once you're in the show, then we have what we call mystery items. And then those, those other 80 or 100 items will be mystery items, and it makes it exciting. For me, I like the idea of not showing everything because it's, again, like TV. I don't want to know. I don't want to know if I'm watching a police show how the mystery gets solved. I want to see it when it happens, not ahead of time. And so for my signed memorabilia shows, there's always only 10 signed pieces that you're going to see. We always sell 30 to 40. So there's 30 or 40 or 20 to 30 mysteries in there. But if you've ever been to those shows, we get 25, 30, 40, 50 people at those shows, and it's very exciting.
So you're talking about creating the actual listing. You'll have 10 to 20 where you take a photo and you give a description, and then you'll just have a bunch of
No description, one photo.
Yeah.
I'm not a photo, a title. That's it. I'm
Yeah.
not going deep because I'm going to be live with the book anyways. I don't need to explain that it's 1812 book with 32 tipped in sheets. I don't have to do it because I'm going to talk about it.
Right.
And
So,
I'm going to showcase it.
You've got that core with a photo and a title, and then you've got a bunch of just blank listings prepared to be able to show.
There'll be a listing called mystery item,
Yeah.
and it may have quantity 30 or quantity 100.
Okay.
Or for like my Sunday show, it's all books from weight: 1 pound,
Right.
1 to 2 pounds, 3 to 4 pounds. It's just weight.
Right. And then to just kind of follow on his prep. So you've sorted all these books by weight. You know what they are. You've got them in totes, in boxes, whatever, that you can work through them. And you just, I think that's what he's fishing for, kind of from the prep standpoint. How much?
I have a library cart behind me that people can't see on wheels in my house. And that's where the books are.
Right. Big Dre says the interview has been eye-opening for me. I never wanted to sell on Whatnot, but you've definitely got me considering it now.
Yeah, let me say this to Big Dre: stop being a fence sitter, man. Stop being a fence sitter. Do it. Stop thinking about it. Get in, learn, take some hits along the way. You have Ryan and I to ask questions to, but stop considering it. That's a big problem. Is the more we think about things as human beings, the more we're going to find fault with things. Right. And if we just do them, we're going to feel the heat of excitement.
Well, and I've had a lot of people that have commented that they don't want to be on camera. They don't, a lot of objections to that piece of it. And I'm always point out, just go look at the variety of shows where some people are like me. I'm on camera and I've got graphics and sound effects and the whole nine. And then there's a person that's just sitting in front of a stack of books, pointing out a book, and all you ever see is their hands.
I mean, most people on my Whatnot shows have no idea what I look like because all they see are my hands. I mean, you and I do two different shows, and yet we're both successful at what we do. You do not have to be on camera. You just have to be able to talk on camera, which gets easier with time too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was always super nervous, like about public speaking.
Hmm.
Like when I was in retail management and I had to get up in front of a store of 100 or 150 associates
Hmm.
and give like a presentation, that always freaked me out. Now, having spent all this time doing YouTube,
Yeah.
I'll talk to anybody.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good point. I think teaching and coaching has made it easier for me. I mean, when you're coaching a basketball game and the stands, it's playoff time and the stands are packed, and it just
Yeah,
makes it easier to be able to talk to people. I don't want to see Big Dre consider. I want to see Big Dre act.
yeah, absolutely. Cameron D, 50/50. Do you get a reduction of your side tax wise with that? Talking
Yeah,
about
and yeah,
consignment.
and I'm also an LLC, and so the house I work out of is 2/3 LLC, and so there's a lot of breaks tax wise on that as well.
Right. So, in terms of, I think, income tax liability, how does that work? And again, neither of us are accountants. I'll preface it with that. But, you're collecting 100% of the sales,
Hmm.
but ultimately then paying out half of
Right.
it to
Yeah.
someone else.
Right. And my consigners are getting paid monthly on the 15th of every month, so everybody gets paid on the same day. Um, usually between the 10th and the 15th. And I have a bookkeeper who does that behind the scenes for me. That's another employee. Um, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't yet,
Right.
for the amount of stuff I'm doing, you have to have a bookkeeper who manages your numbers. I would go insane. You do have to report that for the consignment.
There you go. Den Decor says at Cameron D, the consignment I do is what's paid to the consigner is cost of goods,
Hmm.
not tax advice, just how they do it. Mel Flips, it says, I want to sell on whatnot, but I'm worried about the tech and the live format. Mel and I have talked about that on a couple of occasions. That
Mel, my first show was Sideways. You're gonna make it.
Right. And people are really forgiving for the
Hmm.
most part.
Oh
If you're having technical issues, I mean, I've had shows, again, some of it comes from the complexity of the setup I've got here, but uh, you'll have glitches. They just happen from time to time, and you just explain them and move on and continue on with your show. Don't be intimidated by the tech. If you can
yeah,
use your phone, you can do
right.
whatnot.
And like Big Dre, I don't want Mel to worry about what can happen. Accept it, learn, and just go forward. Too many people are in this network, in this community, they're always worried about what might happen, and that prevents us from risk, and the risk is where we get our reward. And so I next time we do this in another month or so, I want to see Mel say she did her first Whatnot show. I'm putting the gauntlet down on Mel Flips It right now.
There you go. And that's just good life advice, to
Yeah.
be fair. I mean, people hesitate to whatever, ask the person out that they want to go out with. They hesitate to make a decision on a job or a whatever because of the fear of a negative consequence. And you
Mhm.
can block your whole life from happening if you do that.
Yeah.
So take that first step and get started.
No fence sitters allowed here.
Definitely a practice I'd ask a tax pro about. Yes, definitely. I say all the time, every time I bring up anything financial or taxes, I'm like,
I'm
speak
not
to
the
your accountant or your tax attorney, not some guy sitting in his basement on YouTube. Big Dre says, I sold 4 totes of books to Half Price Bookstore for $27 last week. I wonder how much I could have made on Whatnot, even
Yeah,
if it was
yeah.
my first show. Yep.
Mhm.
And
That's another interesting question too. Yeah.
that's kind of the process that I'm working through now to kind of clear through some inventory is, deciding which things I want to sell on eBay or Etsy first,
Hmm.
what things I want to do on Whatnot. And then when I've done all of that and gone through the Whatnot sale and I've got however
Yeah.
many books are left, then I start thinking about, do I want to go to Half Price Books? Do I want to do
Right.
Little Library? Do I want to go to Goodwill?
Mhm.
Whatever the case may be. But I want to take
Yeah.
every opportunity first to capitalize on
Yeah.
that opportunity.
Yeah. I would invite everybody who's listening to this or who is going to listen to this before Sunday to come to my Sunday show and see how chaotic but organized it is, and what great books we're selling. Books that you may say to yourself, oh, I would have put that on eBay, but now it's going on Whatnot. So I would invite anybody to see that. But for Big Dre, I, you know while you got $27 and you wonder what you would have got at Whatnot, I look at this business a little bit differently. I want to know what your daily number is and how do we get you to your daily number. If your daily number is 200, that's what you want to make every day in this business, then how do we get you to $200 instead of looking at like $27 from half price books or question mark amount of money on Whatnot. Could if we could make $200 on those books on Whatnot and your number is $200, then those books go on Whatnot because I
Right.
want to get you to your daily number. I'm all about the daily number, not about how much you get per book. I want to know what your daily number is, and let's do that 365 times a year.
There you go. Den Decor says I have Vendu and I could put my 5,200 listings over to Whatnot as static listings. I need to get them moved and then start looking at doing some lives from my Staler items.
Do we have to throw the gauntlet down on Den Decor Depot too? I mean, do I have to throw it down here?
Mel says, okay, I have books already set to the side. See, she's preparing. She's just
Yeah.
taking it slow. Pixel Tail, good info today. Thanks. I have boxes of my dad's HO trains I might try
Great
on
stuff,
Whatnot.
Pixel. Great stuff.
Yeah, I talk about like model railroad stuff and train memorabilia all the time. That those collectors are fanatical.
They
That
want
show will be
everything.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great show.
Cameron asks, do you have any interest in live selling on District?
When they can compete with the numbers of Whatnot, sure. I think they're still growing their audience.
Right. So I would ask, what was the determination point when you felt like Whatnot's audience was big enough that you took that leap, and where would District have to get to make the same kind of thing?
Yeah, I popped into some of the live districts shows. I popped into some of them, and books for me, it doesn't have the book population yet that
Right.
I see. It is starting to grow, but it to me it feels like what Whatnot was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and so I needed to come along a lot further, a lot quicker. Um,
Right.
but beyond books, it's great for some other categories. It's just books is what I do.
Right. And having those options, I talk about how I hope Mercari is able to turn it around all the time. Having additional places
Yeah,
where you can sell things
right.
is nothing but good as long as they're able to make it.
Yeah, I think it was yesterday I was watching your show and you said you had one Macari sale, and
Yeah.
I can feel you. I can feel you wanting so much more out of Macari. And
Yeah.
in my brain, I was like saying, Ryan, you might want to move on. I know you're holding on tight, but you may want to move on.
Well, and again, for me, and I've talked about it, with using List Perfectly, like a Vendu or any
Mhm.
cross listing tool, putting those items over to Mercari literally takes seconds to
Right.
do. It's free to list. I'm not paying a listing fee. So, I'm not out a significant amount of effort. Now, if I was trying to do all that manually, I would have given up on Mercari ages ago.
Yeah.
But,
I
hoping for the
just don't
best.
think if you're selling less than 10 books a week, the effort should just go into what is getting you the money. I mean, it's a
Right.
personal feeling, but I just,
Right.
we're cheerleading for platforms we want to be like other platforms, and they're not making the moves to be that way.
Right. Right. Look, we got one more here, and then we're going to try to wrap this up. Then Decor says, "I really want Macari to work too, but I'm doing better on Bonanza this
Well,
month."
yeah, I mean,
That's a
yeah,
site that I gave up on was
right, yeah.
Bonanza.
Bonanza 5 years ago, though, 5 years ago, Bonanza was very good for me.
Yeah,
I was selling books and magazines on Bonanza, and then they dropped the ball.
yeah,
I mean, they're almost non-existent. I don't bother with them anymore. I did used to sell on Macari, to be transparent, but it wasn't enough, and I didn't see the growth the way that I see and you see Whatnot growth. Whatnot growth
right,
is every day. It's literally every day, and we keep crossing our fingers for Macari and Bonanza. A lot of my paper golders, they're having a lot of success on Etsy selling books. So I think
oh yeah,
Etsy is getting strong with the books. So
yep,
that would be a marketplace to look at.
right, yeah. I talk about Etsy all the time
Yeah.
because for those vintage and
Mhm.
antiquarian books, it is a different buyer base than what's on eBay or probably even Amazon. They're willing to spend more money. you can really do well over there. It's not, again, it might be 10, 15, 20 books a week over on Etsy, but the fees are generally a little bit less and the margins are better and the average ticket is
Sure.
higher. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, and you and I didn't talk about this, but the fees on Whatnot are a lot less than what they are on eBay. That's something we should have said at the outset.
Yes. Would you care
Thank
to
you for saying.
expand?
My phone just keeps going. I mean, what are we at? We're almost 18% or a little bit over 18% on eBay now on
Depending
fees.
on whether you're promoting or
Yeah,
not,
the
but
category
yeah.
and Whatnot is I think 10.2% with a little bit of shipping they take. And then
Right,
if you become part of the Premier program, that 10% drops down to 7.2%, a third. Again, what is eBay? What is eBay doing for us?
right,
Whatnot is saying, hey, you do this, we'll give you something.
right,
And what eBay is saying to us is you pay us more to promote your items, and maybe we'll give you a sale.
right. And
It's
offer
it's
free
just a
30-day
bad
returns
conversation.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's I hate to say it because I am a proponent of eBay. I love eBay, but dear eBay, talk to us.
Yeah. Let us know what the plans are.
Yeah, yeah.
They've got a huge community of people who are very supportive of
Hmm.
what they do, and
I'm a big
people like
fan. I
myself
just
who are critical,
yeah.
but it comes
They
from a place of love.
they pay a lot of my bills and give me a lot of money, but I Whatnot is taking control, and
Yep.
they know it. They know it.
Well, we're a little over an hour here, and that's about where I like to keep these. So if you have any closing thoughts you would like to share
I
with
just
the
want to thank
audience,
you again. I see you all the time in the show, and I just want to thank you again for having me and being able to talk to your audience. And I hope I get to see people on Whatnot.
perfect. And as always, thank you to everyone who came out today and spent a little time with us. Hopefully, you got something out of it. And again, if you did and you're still here and you haven't yet hit that thumbs up button, please do that as well. I would appreciate it. As always, it's time to sell. Thanks, guys.
Bye, Ryan.